Spider-Man has always been defined by two things: the villains he fights and the people he loves. And across 6 films, 3 actors, and more than 2 decades of live-action storytelling, the love interests have been just as central to who Peter Parker is as any enemy he has faced. Some became icons, some became frustrations, and one became something nobody saw coming. Today we are ranking every major Spider-Man love interest in live-action history, not just by popularity, but by what they actually brought to Peter's story, what they added, what they cost him, and what their presence revealed about who he was. By the end, the answer to who holds the title of most loved and most hated might not be who you are expecting. When Sam Raimi's Spider-Man arrived in 2002, Mary Jane Watson carried enormous expectation with her. In the comics, MJ is a force of nature, fiery, magnetic, self-aware, someone who looks at Peter Parker carrying the weight of the world and does not flinch. That is who she was supposed to be on screen. What the films gave audiences instead was a Mary Jane who could not decide. Not in a way that felt like genuine human complexity, in a way that felt structural, like the films needed her to be unavailable, because a Mary Jane who simply chose Peter and stayed did not generate enough tension across 3 movies. So she chased fame in the first film, got engaged to an astronaut in the second, and broke up with Peter under Harry's manipulation in the third, without asking a single question that someone who genuinely loved him would have asked. The moment that crystallized everything was the missed play scene in Spider-Man 2. Peter is late because he has been saving lives. MJ's response is to treat it as a personal betrayal and compare him to John Jameson, who always shows up. It is a small scene, but it reveals something the films never recovered from. Raimi's MJ consistently prioritized what Peter's presence meant to her over what Peter's existence required of him. The defense of her character is real. She is flawed in a recognizably human way, dealing with her own fears in an impossible situation. But there is a difference between a character who is flawed and a character written to be an obstacle by necessity. For much of the trilogy, MJ felt like the second one. Not the woman who loved Peter Parker, but the reason he could never catch a break. An anchor when the story needed a partner.
It's not working. You and me.
What?
I don't want to see you anymore.
What are you talking about?
Then Emma Stone walked onto the screen and everything changed. Gwen Stacy works from the very first moment because Stone understood something the character needed someone to understand. Gwen was not there for Spider-Man. She was there for Peter, his awkwardness, his intelligence, his specific, overwhelming way of being present in a conversation. She was not dazzled by the suit. She was interested in the person wearing it. The chemistry between Stone and Garfield was genuine, and it translated on screen the way real familiarity always does. Every glance had history in it. Every exchange had the ease of 2 people who actually knew each other outside the superhero spectacle surrounding them. You cannot manufacture that in a rehearsal room. Either it is there or it is not. What made Gwen genuinely different was her agency. When Peter tries to push her away for her own safety, she does not accept it quietly. She calls him out, makes her own assessment of the risk, and refuses to let someone else define the limits of her own life. She is already on the battlefield during the climax of the first film, not because Peter brought her there, but because she figured out how to help and she went. That agency made her feel like a real person, and it is why her death in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 landed as hard as it did even when the audience saw it coming.
Hey. Gwen?
The film had spent 2 movies making viewers genuinely invested in Gwen as a human being, not a plot function. When she was gone, the loss was not just Peter's, it was the audience's. That is the mark of a love interest written at the highest level, the gold standard that every Spider-Man romance since has been quietly measured against. Liz Allen does not get talked about enough. In a franchise full of grand romantic gestures and universe-altering heartbreaks, she occupies quieter territory. But what she represents in Peter's MCU journey is more important than her limited screen time suggests. Liz is everything Peter thinks he wants at 15. Popular, kind, genuinely approachable. She notices him in a way that no one at Midtown has before. And their romance is deliberately small-scale. A high school crush that fits perfectly inside Homecoming's friendly neighborhood tone. Every time Peter ditches her for hero duties, you feel the weight of what he is giving up, even when what he is giving up is just a pool party. But Liz Allen will always be remembered for one thing above everything else: the door opening, Peter showing up to take her to Homecoming, and Adrian Toomes standing in the doorway. That dinner table scene, Toomes quietly assembling the pieces while Liz sits completely unaware, is one of the MCU's finest moments of sustained tension. And when the truth finally lands, her heartbreak is not overplayed. It is just enough, real enough. Her family leaves town because her father is going to prison and Spider-Man put him there. That is not petty romantic drama. That is genuine consequence. And it gave Liz Allen a place in this franchise that no amount of additional screen time could have improved. Zendaya's MJ arrived in Homecoming looking like a background character and quietly became one of the most important figures in the entire MCU Spider-Man story. The key to why she worked is the same thing that made audiences initially uncertain about her. The MCU did not rush it. There are no grand gestures in the early stages of Peter and MJ. No dramatic confessions. No rain-soaked declarations. Just small moments, shared glances, and the specific awkward electricity of two teenagers who cannot quite figure out what they mean to each other yet. By the time they finally get together in Far From Home, it is messy and sweet and entirely believable because the foundation was already there. No Way Home is where the full weight of that slow burn pays off. MJ stands alongside Peter facing villains from across the multiverse without flinching, and then comes the ending. Peter choosing to erase himself from her memory to protect her. The heartbreak of that scene does not come from anything that is said. It comes from what is left unsaid. Two people who built something real together, standing on opposite sides of an irreversible decision.
Doesn't really hurt anymore.
Zendaya's MJ proved that when a love interest is written with patience and given genuine interiority, audiences will follow her anywhere, even into the kind of ending that leaves them sitting in silence after the credits roll. Felicia Hardy should have been a major moment for this franchise. In the comics, she is the Black Cat, morally complex, dangerously charming, one of Peter Parker's most complicated romantic entanglements. A character with enough depth and history to carry her own film, let alone a supporting role in someone else's. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, she is Harry Osborn's assistant. That is the entire role. No backstory, no hint of her alter ego, no chemistry with Peter, no tension, no suggestion that this character exists as anything beyond a placeholder for sequels that never arrived. Felicity Jones brought nothing to the role because the role gave her nothing to bring. Felicia Hardy's cameo is the clearest possible symbol of everything wrong with that film. A movie so busy setting up a cinematic universe, it forgot to tell a complete story. Wasted potential does not begin to cover it. Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3 deserves more credit than she gets. The film around her is crowded and messy and pulled in too many directions at once. But Gwen herself is a genuinely warm and grounded presence that the movie needed more of. She is not there to replace MJ, and she is not shoehorned in for sequel purposes. She serves the story as a catalyst for Peter and MJ's tension, while remaining completely likable in her own right. The jazz club scene is the most revealing moment for her character. Peter brings her there to make MJ jealous, using her as emotional ammunition without her knowledge. And Gwen dances with him, laughing, completely unaware of his real intentions, and somehow manages to come out of the whole thing looking more dignified than anyone else in the room. When she figures out what happened, she apologizes to MJ immediately. No drama, no score settling, just quiet class. In a film that gives almost every character at least one embarrassing moment, Gwen Stacy never has one. That is an achievement. So where does that leave us? Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen is the most underrated. Felicia Hardy is the most wasted. Liz Allen is the most underappreciated. Zendaya's MJ is the most patient and the most rewarding. The most loved is Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. Not because of the chemistry or the agency or even the death, though all of it contributed, because she made audiences feel like Peter Parker had finally found someone who saw all of him and chose to stay anyway. That is irreplaceable. And the most hated, Raimi's MJ. Not because Kirsten Dunst failed the role, but because the films failed the character. They took one of the most compelling women in comic book history and wrote her as someone Peter could never quite hold on to. In a franchise built on the idea that with great power comes great responsibility, Mary Jane Watson deserved better. And so did we.